To today's CitiObs session. Good morning. My name is Uta Wehn, and together with my colleagues Neha Mungekar and Tove Crystal, also from IHE Delft, we welcome you to this session, which is part of the CitiObs ongoing efforts to enhance citizen observatories, existing citizen observatories. Today we'll be focusing on one of the 4 toolkits that CitiObs is producing, and particularly the one on participation dynamics in citizen observatories. So it's my pleasure to welcome you, those of you who represent what for our project purposes are frontrunner cases or alliance cases. We very much look forward to holding this interactive session with you. And perhaps by means of context, it's important to note that the toolkit we have prepared really is work in progress. So we would like to encourage you to see this as a two-way conversation. We have some suggestions, some approaches we can offer that help us address participation dynamics in citizen observatories, but we have just as much to learn from you, and we very much look forward to hearing back your feedback either during the session or, of course, also afterwards. So the session is structured as followed. We have a brief introduction to set the scene on what we mean by participation dynamics in citizen observatories. And then we will have interactions with you to really understand why you are here and in the context of your particular citizen observatory, and perhaps some specific concerns about dynamics in your observatories. Then we will have an overview and a broader introduction to what is in this participation dynamics toolkit, followed up by breakout groups so that we can really delve into the details and get acquainted with the toolkit and how you can use it. Coming back from the breakout groups, we'll have time to feedback and discuss and exchange what happened in the different groups and some broader reflections on this, and then we will close. And we have an hour and a half for this. So let's get started with the introduction. When we talk about participation dynamics in a citizen observatory context, perhaps it's good to remember that what we're talking about when we talk about a citizen observatory, because we're really looking at a particular form of citizen science where we're trying to foster collaborations between citizens and communities, scientists and data aggregators, and various authorities, decision makers or policy makers at different governance levels. So citizen observatories really are a way of not only monitoring environmental challenges, but also acting on them. And with CitiObs, we're trying to help make existing environmental monitoring more accessible, reliable, and impactful. And the focus on the participation dynamics is one of those ways. What then are the participation dynamics? Well, as you just saw from the illustration I showed you, the observatories, of course, bring together people. And when people come together, often good things happen, but of course, things can also get a bit tense or difficult. Participation dynamics, therefore, are the varied ways of interacting and the different relationships between the participants that together form what we call a citizen observatory. And perhaps in a nutshell, we can say that participation dynamics refer to how people take part and interact in a citizen observatory. So then it's of course important to bear in mind that participation looks different really in different observatories. There's no one size fits all. There's different constellations of stakeholders, different communities, different environmental issues, and all of those also influence who participates and how. So that is related to what the observatory is actually trying to do, what it's aiming for, which may be explicit but also implicit goals and objectives of an observatory. And these dynamics of how people interact and relate to each other ultimately, of course, have a great influence on how effective the observatory is, but also what outcomes it can achieve and how it may be hampered in achieving those. So looking at the participation dynamics can help us support the active engagement of all participants, address conflicts when they arise, and also manage specific risks. But overall, it really also helps us to make sure that we continuously improve and evolve the observatory and adapt and refine the approaches, the way we communicate, and that we really have the best systems in place for meaningful and sustained participation in environmental monitoring, planning, and management. So with that brief introduction as to what are participation dynamics and why we need.
So one thing is, thank you for all the insights that you had added in the Miro board. Yeah, Uta, can you move to the second slide? I will be shortly sharing the link to the toolkit. So there is a toolkit on the participation. Can you move ahead? Yeah. So the toolkit is it's very well organized. So I'll be taking you through the toolkit. But how is it organized is, first the toolkit explains the need and how does it help. So as Uta set the premise by explaining what are the dynamics in a CO, and then how can we examine and understand. What I am taking you through is the reasonings, the approaches of how can we improve the participation dynamics. So all of you had pointed out to the issues that we all face it. So through our understanding, through our past experiences and the literature, it helped us to understand six major approaches and the needs through which we can improve this dynamics. The first one being, how can we build trust and cooperation? I see a lot of issues pointed out in terms of political agendas, the trust between the people towards the subject, etc. Then how can we manage decision making within our CO under the high degree of uncertainty, dynamism, such as political cycles, changing in different geopolitical scenarios, etc. Then how can we ensure that the views and interests of all stakeholders are taken into account? So as most of you have also written about the vulnerable population, marginalized views, which do not make to the surface. So how can that be considered? How can we manage and resolve conflicts between stakeholders in our CO? That has also been stated by one or two on the Miro board. Then also, how can we identify the root causes of the problems? Many times a lot of the participants in a CO, they work on the immediate symptoms rather than reaching towards the deep down root causes. So what are the ways to approach this kind of issue? And thirdly, how can we ensure the uptake of Citizen Observatory towards generated data? I see a lot of suggestions on the maintenance of a CO, of the credibility of data that has been collected through a CO. So I do see a lot of connection and how these approaches could be useful. Each of these approach in the toolkit is again further divided into three parts. So first we try to explain how is this approach relevant? How are these aspects relevant? And then how can this be done? How can this be detailed out? And finally, the third part is talks about the useful resources. Next slide, please. Next slide. Yeah, so this is exactly what I explained. So the first one talks about trust and cooperation. Second is management of decisions in uncertainty, dynamic premises. Third one is views of how all the stakeholders can be considered. The fourth one is management of conflicts. The fifth one is identifying of the root causes and the deep underlying issues. And the last one is about how do we uptake citizen observatory data. I will share the toolkits link in the chat now. So all of us can know if you can access it. And I will also share now. Yes. Let me know if...
Yeah, we can see it
Go
now.
ahead.
Okay, but I can't. Oh. Okay. Toa, if you can share, because both the screens are showing only the gallery of participants at the moment.
Yes, I will share. Can you see?
Great, thanks.
Yeah, so I will again try to share it. Let's see. Yes. Unfortunately, my Zoom is not allowing me to share. Uh,
If Tova shares, I think it's
I'll
okay.
share, yeah.
yeah, okay. Then I will ask you to maybe move about. So yeah.
Mhm.
So you would be, when you use this link, you would be taken to the main page, which talks about the general usage. And on the left, you will see a navigation board which talks about why this toolkit, what are the participation dynamics, and how can we examine and understand the dynamics. So it gives you a base of why are we here and how, the relevance of this entire toolkit, which Uta also explained in the earlier slides. The last tool is how do we improve. So this is exactly where we try to understand the need to use this kind of tools. So if you click any of those aspects that I explained, so it is again further divided in three parts. So why is it relevant? So basically to understand why do we need to understand these approaches. So for example, this one talks about trust and cooperation. So why do we need to work on rebuilding trust, mending distrust, building cooperation? So this aspect of it is discussed right at the start. So why is it relevant? So moving further, how can this be done? So the second part talks about various approaches to understand how can trust be mediated, how can cooperation be worked upon. Different literature strings have been attached here to understand how we came down to these different practices to try to address, try to resolve this kind of issues. Who is saying what in different gray reports as well. Um, moving further down, in the end, you will see the resources. Yeah, so these are the clear-cut tools, which once you understand which particular approach fits you, the kind of issue that you want to resolve, and the earlier paragraphs helps you understand why you need to use that, then you can definitely go to the resources that help, that are ample resources, which can help you also design your own method, tweak your method. So this is a repository that provides you with so many different ways to try to resolve issues. So again, it's not just one aspect. You can also use, maybe you can also combine trust and maybe management of decisions in uncertainty, and also work on developing a kind of a method that works in both the issues. So that's how the toolkit is organized. So maybe in 30 seconds, if we come back to the presentation. All right, so I hope we are back, and maybe we'll use the time later during the breakout room to also go back to this each of those approaches. But I would like to take down to three meta levels of approaches that can connect to all these different tools. So first thing is also looking at your various responses on the Miro board. One of the key approach that we would like to work with you all in this workshop is recognizing the need to recognize incentives and barriers that influence participation, therefore to manage decision making under uncertainty. So what we are going to work with you all is we will also try to understand from your cases is identify what drives and hinders the participation, and then explore how the broader systems, relationships, conditions shape the stakeholders engagement beyond their own individual behaviors. So that's the first key approach that we are going to work with you all. The second approach is, and these are also divided as per the breakout rooms. Many of you spoke about the political agendas that also influence the decision-making processes. So therefore, one of the key approach that we want to work with you is creating spaces for open and honest communication. And that will help maybe to build trust and also to align cooperation. Therefore, we want to understand and develop an approach that helps people realize what they feel and think and experience, and bring forth the sensitivity, bring forth around and tried to discuss honestly the sensitive issues that kind of make the space unsafe. So how can we make space safe to discuss sensitive topics, which is really the core of a CEO. One of third need that we would like to work with in the third breakout room is building a shared understanding of problem, because all of us can come up with different intents and different urgent issues, but then how do we come and meet on the common ground? So building a shared understanding of a problem and finding a common ground to ensure that all stakeholder views and interests are considered. So basically, we'll try to understand approaches that helps to clarify different actors to perceive the issue and work towards a collective framing and enables inclusion coordinated decisions. So by working on these approaches, it helps us, it builds the capacity to diagnose the issue, therefore making us equipped to use the toolkit in a more handy way so we can use the right tools once we know how to deal with these approaches. So yeah, that's from me. And a quick round of question and answer if there are some burning clarifying questions. Otherwise, we can move to the breakout rooms.
Your suggestions for this toolkit are very welcome. As I said before, this is work in progress. So from the discussions we had today, we will of course carefully look also at what you've shared with us in the mirror board, but also beyond today's session. Please do feel free to reach out to us. Perhaps your situation can also serve as a good illustration and case study, let's say, for some of the difficulties, but also particularly some of the ways forward, some of the approaches to apply. Then we wanted to give us a heads up that the next session in this series of the CitiObs Toolkits is the Leaving No One Behind Toolkit. We will reach out shortly with specifics as to the date. And then finally, the recording of this toolkit session, like many other materials from CitiObs, will shortly be made available on the CitiObs YouTube channel. So with that, I'd like to thank you all very much for your participation today and for sharing what's going on in your different observatories. It's been a fruitful session and very helpful for us also for the CitiObs team. As we mentioned, we're trying to reinforce each other's efforts. So please do reach out to us if you have concrete suggestions of how we can do that, definitely beyond the toolkits in various interactions. Thank you so much and have a good day.
Bye. Goodbye.
Thank you. Goodbye.